doing our first ever trio episode.
And look who the first guest is.
He got on.
I love a good three-way.
This is unfortunate because we were going to go in with like a super top level guest, but Elliot will do, I guess.
Yeah, hey, you know what it is? Sometimes you have to just have the bench guys come in. You know,
Yep.
the practice squad gets promoted onto the game day roster, and here I am. So,
All right, Elliot, welcome to the podcast. As you know, we kind of do this off the cusp and talk about some fun stuff. So first and foremost, you're a Porsche guy.
oh yeah,
Give me the background.
okay. So Porsche are taking their shares. They go an IPO. They're giving it an initial offering. So this is a big deal.
No, give me your Porsche background.
Oh, you want my Porsche?
I want your Porsche background.
I know this stuff.
We're
inside
not jumping
out.
to the stock market yet.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself there.
We gotta loosen up a little bit.
I love a good deal, you know. Okay, so out of college, I worked at the local dealership, Porsche dealership. So I was a Porsche brand ambassador for 2 years. So I'm pretty intimate with the brand. I've owned four.
Whoa.
Owned four Porsches, and I have
Which ones?
So I've had a 2007 911 C4S was my first Porsche.
Okay.
Second one was a Cayman GTS. That was brand new. That was my first brand new car.
This thing was beautiful.
It was
orange.
nice.
It was like a hot orange too.
Yeah. Oh, it was hot. And I got the Porsche employee deal. So
Yeah.
you know, that's why
It worked out.
that's why it worked out. Then I left Porsche in 2018. Got into real estate. And my next Porsche I bought was a 2016 911 GT3 RS, which
This
is like,
is when Elliot really came on the scene in real estate.
No. It was a rental. No, that was my first like big time Porsche. That's a for most people that know, it's a $200,000 plus car. That was my first one, my first big one. And then my most recent one I have right now, I have a 28.
Because you got a recent one.
Yeah, I did. I bought, it must have been 3 or 4 months ago now.
Okay.
I got a...
Elliot can't do without an exotic car in his garage.
I can't. So I went almost
You went dad
18.
van.
Dude, I do have a dad van Mercedes GLC 63, and I was driving that forever, and I still have it. That's my daily work vehicle. I was driving that, and I got rid of my 911 GT3 RS about 18 months prior. I'm like, I can't do this, man. Like, the dad van's cool, but it's not a Porsche. So I recently, about 3 months ago, bought a manual, 6-speed manual, 2018 911 GT3.
Okay.
With a titanium exhaust. It is completely unnecessary. It's very loud, but no man should die without owning a Porsche. So that's my Porsche background in a nutshell.
It might be on my radar for something next. I really like the electric.
Yeah,
Porsche. It's
so
cool.
The
It's different.
take on it, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is 100% different, and it's got more utility to it. It's obviously
Right.
got, back seats, more trunk space. I haven't driven one personally. I'm not a massive EV guy, and
He likes the sound.
it's just the sound. Like,
And that's why you put on big old fat exhausts
yeah,
too.
you have to. I mean, the EV is great. I love the idea of taking care of the planet and making things renewable and whatnot. My only issue is they don't sound the same.
That's very true.
that's
Yeah,
just
it sounds like rubber and road. That's
Literally
all you
nothing.
get.
Yeah, they can
So,
sneak up on you.
So Riley, do you like Porsches?
Yeah, I actually, when people ask me like, what's the first nice car you're gonna buy, it probably would be a Porsche. I've always liked Porsches. Bree loves like the Macons, like the mom Porsches, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, the Taycan looks amazing. Like, it just looks great. Also, like, it is the EV, so it's like, what are you going for here? You know, I love the 911s as well. So yeah, I'm a Porsche guy. I would say.
So Porsche is IPOing tomorrow. Super interesting for us. I don't know if we call us Americans, but in the U.S. it's going to be really it's really difficult for us to buy the stock when it lists tomorrow.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I know you know some info, but I'll let you take it from here on the IPO, and I can chime in because I did some research too.
Yeah. So funnily enough, their IPO is going to consist of 911. See, they did their 911, 911 million shares.
Smart. That's a good
it's
business
smart.
move.
It is. They're splitting in half, so they have 405.5 regular shares, so ordinary shares.
It'll be available to
and then they have
retail.
their preferred shares. So actually, their preferred shares are the ones that are going to be available to actually buy.
Okay.
Obviously, preferred shares tend to pay. They're preferential in their dividends, so
Yep,
it actually works out better as an investor. But what's interesting is how they're structuring how Volkswagen, who own Porsche, because people would know that Volkswagen own Porsche, how they're structuring this IPO. They are still giving the Porsche family, who actually currently own Porsche, they have the controlling
majority
share, majority stake. Yeah, they're going to be giving the Porsche family 25% plus one share of those preferred shares.
Interesting.
So they can not remain in control, but they still have say in future.
The direction.
Yeah, the direction of the business.
Yeah.
But
that's good. It is a smart business.
It is a smart business model, but business move. What's even smarter that people don't realize is Volkswagen own Porsche, and even though they're going with their IPO, Volkswagen will still have the majority control. But guess who owns Volkswagen? The Porsche family. So it doesn't matter which way you look at it. It doesn't matter whether you look at them giving them shares directly from Porsche. They still control Volkswagen to an extent.
So they're kind of breaking off, but not really breaking off.
Yeah,
and raising money.
They're raising money.
When I researched this, it was a way to raise money to really transition Porsche into that EV space. Mm-hmm. They're always going to keep the 911 raw and real, which I thought was really cool when I was looking up some info. But like dad vans, a lot of the SUVs are like 40 to 50% of their sales now. Mm-hmm. And so they've really got to evolve in that space, I think. They're going to try and surpass Tesla in 2025 with EV sales is what I've heard, which could be doable.
I mean, if they definitely have Tesla on the looks, like on the looks side of things.
Quality for sure.
Like fin finishes. Yeah.
But then it comes
Have you ever shut a Tesla door before compared to a Porsche door? It feels like it's going to fall off.
It's like shutting a tin can. So when you open up a tuna can, you shut it. It's like that, you know?
Yeah. It's like, I don't even know if it's going to close the same every time.
Yep.
But I don't know do you know what Porsche's, what their like manufacturing looks like? Like, will they be able to keep up if they do surpass
the demand? That's a good question.
So Porsche, this is an interesting stat that helps you figure out, I think, why they're doing this. They're estimating that the IPO is going to raise about $9 billion, right? Because they're going to need it for research,
software,
for manufacturing,
R&D.
software R&D for electric vehicles. So Porsche are the most profitable manufacturer in the world. Fact.
Wow.
They are the most profitable, including Ferrari, Lamborghini, anything you can think of high end, even volume 2. Just looking at how much money they make as a percentage of like what their MSRPs are, manufacturing costs and whatnot. Porsche account for over 20% of Volkswagen's profit. Their operating profit, but they only account for 3.5% of their delivered vehicles. So that shows you they're very profitable. But yes, my concern would be, okay, you want to outdo Tesla. If you're only delivering 3.5% of Volkswagen's actual deliverable vehicles, how much outfitting your factories are you going to have to do? How many more people are you going to have to employ? How much more machines? All that kind of stuff. And that's going to obviously, your operating expenses are going to skyrocket.
Yep.
So I think that's part of the reason why they're doing this IPO is they need to raise money.
They need to raise some money.
If they want to compete with Tesla on sales,
R&D and
they're going to need
I think
to do
that's
a
the
lot of
thing
stuff.
that that not many people understand is like the factory manufacturing aspect of the Tesla is like, I feel like it's 10 years ahead of every other car manufacturing company
Just
because
on volume.
Just on the volume and in the robotics in building those cars. Yeah, they are tin cans.
I was like, you can tell
they're like
but it's
printing
also like,
those things.
You got to start somewhere, right? So it's
but doesn't that concern you? I mean, you said you've shut doors on a Tesla and you know it's bad. Porsche is known for its quality. Like as a Porsche enthusiast myself, I'm kind of worried that maybe the quality goes down because of that, you know?
Yeah, that is true because they're more focused on like the computer generated software aspect of it. That's interesting.
It'll be interesting to see for sure. Because right now they only have one EV, right? The Taycan?
One fully electric vehicle, from my understanding, is Taycan. That's it. And then they have hybrids. They have a couple hybrids in the Cayenne range.
Yeah.
I think they're doing all kinds of research for this, like the Cayman Boxster, to kind of make them somewhat at least hybrid.
Yeah.
It's just, it's changing times, I guess.
Well, we'll see. It IPOs tomorrow.
It's set at 82 euros. What does that convert to?
79 to 82, because that's the like where the market maker has to, analyze it, and then all of a sudden they're like, all right, we got enough buys and sells.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I think that there is somewhere between 75 and 82 euros, which works out at about 72 to $80 ish. We use pounds in England, but I know euros well enough. It's a few, like if you take it's like a couple percent points less.
Right.
So yeah, I think I've read all kinds of comments online and read people's opinions, and people are like, oh yeah, it's going to fail. That's way overvalued. Obviously, valuation, it talks about market cap, and there's all kinds of things like profitability. But if you just look at the facts, Ferrari's Ferrari stock is like, I think €180 each.
Oh, wow.
So if you look at it, it's like less than half. Well, it's a third of like what even Ferrari's at. So just to give like a somewhat comparison, I don't know if it truly is overvalued, but we'll see, because there's so much behind those valuations.
Right. And it's a great time to launch a stock. Market is in the shit.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't know. It's interesting to see. I don't know if you guys are interested in buying it. I'm kind of.
If I could get my hands on it, I'd buy a few shares just for fun.
What exchange is it on?
The Frankfurt exchange. So I don't know if there's any U.S. exchanges that you can purchase it through. So we'll test it out tomorrow. Maybe we'll buy a share in honor of Elliot.
I don't know. My cousin was into stock trading, and he's in Europe. So
ooh,
I know, maybe I could get a back end deal there, fellas.
I've also never really been one to trade an IPO.
Really,
as an investor.
Okay.
I mean, I think more often than not, you see the price
go up,
skyrocket, and then correct. So it's like, I mean, I don't know if you're on like an A list. Okay, I see. Like, do that. Like, get in early, but like 95% of the population is not on an A list. So it's like,
yeah, that's true, especially when it comes to retail investors.
Yeah. I think letting it. If it's me personally, I'm letting it kind of play its course a little bit and then see, because you're taking the risk if you take it initially, right? You're taking the risk of, okay, I want to see if it suddenly skyrockets. Yeah. That's great if you're playing the short-term game and you haven't got much time to live, but we're all pretty young at this table.
Right.
Let's just kind of ride it out and see if we can time it up a little bit more,
Well, and it speaks to, like, with how many Porsches you've owned over the years, I like to invest in things that I do every day. I buy a lot of Apple stock. It's like, it's fun to invest in the things that you buy in your everyday life. I think it keeps it relevant in life. So... well, we're going to pivot today. Elliot, let's ride. What is going on at Boise State right now?
Where do we start? I mean, if we have a couple hours, we're good. Or I can try and condense it.
I know. This is yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. So, for those that aren't watching or that need a recap, Boise State is in a very rough situation right now. I think we're 2-2 on the season. We've got a lot of inside turbulence.
Are we 2-2 or 2-1?
2.
We've played
2. Is it 4 games?
I don't know.
We lost to Oregon State and UTEP. And we beat New Mexico and whoever was we played at home. So yeah, we're 2-2.
Yes.
We're 2-2. The offensive coordinator was fired early this week after a very poor performance against UTEP. We lost to UTEP.
UTEP, the worst team in the country.
I mean, UTEP are pretty bad. They're like the 8th best team in Texas. So, I mean, they're not even close to the top.
You're probably 8-man high school team could have beat them, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even have a high school team, and I still could have beat them on my own, I think. I'm just playing. Sorry, love you, UTEP. So after that, the OC was fired. And people were like, okay, well, that's going to fix our problems because we've had a lot of offensive issues. Okay, well, the play calling's been terrible. Fire the OC, that's great. We'll get someone else in it's now Dirk Cutter, who former Boise State coach.
He's got some legendary skills.
He's got some legendary skills. He has. He's coached in the NFL.
He's got a great house up in the hills.
Good for him. I remember when I was rich. So yeah, we got Dirk at the helm, and in the process, the starting QB decided to transfer, and that was a little bit of a shock.
Right.
He had received some negative press for his.
So the worst thing is I went to the game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And his performance this year hasn't been, in my opinion, where it needs to be for a senior quarterback that's seen the field 4 years in a row. Yeah, there's some injuries where he missed some games, but when they announced his name in the starting lineup, everybody in the stands booed him. It was bad. I never played Boise State football. Elliot did. I struggled with getting on the Hank bandwagon, to be honest, because I didn't see the confidence, the internal confidence that you need as a quarterback in college, in the NFL. I mean, you're the team leader, and you need to show that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, I'll never critique someone as a character, kind of an individual, or at least I'll try not to.
Right.
But from a playing perspective, again, I played defensive line. I didn't play quarterback. However,
defensive guy is that quarterback still kind of the team leader? Like when you were there, who was your guys' quarterback?
So we had my last 2 years, it was Brett Rippon.
Right.
And then before that, we had Grant Hedrick. And then Joe
Brett throwing dimes in the NFL now.
He is. He's
back up to let's ride.
To let's ride. Bronco country, let's ride. So the QB always is important. And what was interesting to me, and some people said don't read too much into this, but Hank wasn't named a captain at the beginning of the year. And generally speaking, a quarterback is kind of
the team captain.
Yeah,
usually
so,
are. Yeah.
That was a little bit interesting to me.
Huh.
And again, performance-wise, was it up to standard? Absolutely not. Not even close. What's kind of hard for me to get my head around, and I grew up I played college football from 2012 to 2016. The transfer rules are very different. I was surprised he chose to transfer. I get that he's within his right to, and the situation is different now.
Right, yeah.
But transferring, it doesn't, in my personal opinion, it's just my personal opinion and in my experience too, because I was faced with the option to potentially do that early in my career, it doesn't really build that character that helps you with the rest of your life. It's kind of the easier way out.
Right.
It may help your football career, but when it talks to your character development and how you build that, it is, by definition, it is kind of quitting. And when you talk about, doing stuff with your team and your teammates, they could need you at any given time. So I do find the transferring thing hard.
Yeah.
It was the right decision for him. I wish him all the best.
Yeah, same. Yeah, we want him to do well.
We always want him to do well.
Exactly.
If I'm in that situation, I don't know if transferring would have been my personal option.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of like when the times get hard, it's like, oh, let's try something new. And once again, my personal opinion, I don't think Hank's an NFL quarterback. Like what good is it doing you?
That was interesting. No, 100%.
That's the real discussion, I think.
Yeah, I'm not a QB guru or whisperer, and I won't profess to know much about them. I know how to hit them, but I know how to throw footballs. But that being said, I know that one of the comments he made, he went to the national news, which is another thing. He didn't go to the local news. He went to the national news and said, I want to go to a program that focuses on winning, or winning's a priority, and NFL development. The winning part could be taken as a backhanded kind of thing. I won't look too much into that. It's probably taken out of context.
Because he's the one that's kind of controlling the winning or not in ways. If you're not scoring points, you're not going to win games.
100%.
Sorry.
No, you're right. And then the NFL development thing was interesting to me because, like you said, to be truly considered like a chance to be an NFL quarterback in any way, whether that's starting or second string, even third string, you have to show a lot more, I think, than he had shown recently.
Oh,
so that's
for
an interesting,
sure. Yeah.
interesting
I mean,
take.
you look at Boise State over the years, I think is Brett the longest standing NFL guy? If you look at it today, I mean, Kellen Moore he was our greatest quarterback of all time.
No question.
No questions asked. And you look at, now he's an offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Unbelievable career because he was so good in college because of his brains, not because of his physical stature necessarily. But it's interesting to see that, Brett played when you were there, how he has excelled because I feel like he's the persona of hard work, maybe not the most natural talent in the world, but he'll bust his ass to the nth degree,
Yeah, 100%, man. He definitely, I don't want to say he's overachieved, because I always knew he was good, but he definitely lasted longer, or is lasting longer than a lot of people were thinking he would. And you're right. I think he's the most NFL tenured, experienced, on a roster in any way, shape, or form QB we've ever had, which is kudos to him. He's a really good guy too. Actually, I texted him the day that it was announced that he was, made the cut, basically. Brett's an awesome dude, really good guy, and I always root for him. So obviously you never wish injury on anyone. Hopefully Russell stays healthy, but at the same time,
he's got to pick up the play too, or else you got to plug in number two.
I will put Rip in there any day of the week, man. I mean, how cool would that be to see? I mean, I'm not, again, hopefully Russell stays healthy, but if it's performance based, I'd love to see Brett come in there and sling a few touchdowns.
Take some snaps. Man. My dad went to the game this last weekend. It was kind of interesting because my dad went to college with now the GM of the Broncos, and they're a little upset, obviously, because they spent $250 million on Russell. And you got one good drive out of him last weekend on Sunday Night Football, but that was the most boringest game I've ever watched in my life. Final score 10-11.
10-11, yeah.
There's only one other NFL game in history that ended in that score.
Really?
Yeah, in the history of the NFL. That was the second game. It's interesting.
It seems to be, it goes one of two ways. When guys get their bag, they get their big contract. it either seems to motivate them. They're like, all right, yeah, I need to do what I was paid to do.
Right.
But more often than not, I kind of feel when guys get their big bag, they take their foot off the gas a little bit sometimes.
Just a little bit. You look at it happens to everybody. You look at Conor McGregor. You look at any of these guys that have the bag now. They're like, all right, just not as hungry. You know.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I always thought Russell was supposed to be like a top tier competitor.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's
team around him has something to do with it. You know.
There's so many different. So many different things at play there, I guess. But yeah, if someone's paying me that much money, I'm showing up every day in every game because that's a big investment.
That's a big investment.
I'm not an NFL.
All right, what's the Boise State prediction for the rest of the year with new offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter and new quarterback Taylon Green?
I'm cautiously optimistic and I'm excited, but I have realistic expectations in that there's going to be probably a few L's in there. You got a guy,
for sure. Yeah.
a guy that isn't too experienced.
Freshman.
I'd be happy if we broke 500, which is, and I was going to say happy. That's not that as a player. That wasn't the standard. It never really
for
should
sure.
be.
It was win every game.
It was win every game, and it would win it by a lot. As a fan, I would be happy with a plus 500. So winning more than 50 games. I think this year is just a really important year to get young Green some game time and get him the experience. Because I think he's got the skill set, potentially to be quite something.
I see a lot of Lamar Jackson in him, to be honest with you.
He's a tall Lamar Jackson
too. He's tall. He's quick. He's agile. Riley's sitting over here like football. What is that?
Yeah, you guys take this
round
one.
ball.
You know a football guy?
No, never really have been.
That's all right.
He's a golfer.
Yeah,
he's a golfer.
I'm a golfer.
I'm a golfer too. I'm not a very good one, but I'm a golfer nonetheless.
All right, so we got Elliot's prediction. We're going to recap that at the end of the year and see how well the Broncos do because I'm an alumni as well and want to root for those guys. Yeah. How's the real estate market?
Interesting is what I'd say.
Okay.
I think it depends on where you're at too. Every market, generally speaking, is different to the one next door. I mean, even in Boise here, Boise versus Meridian is a little bit different.
Yeah. How so? Explain that a little bit.
So I haven't got the dialed in stats, but I do know that days on market in Meridian and price drops are trending much higher in percentages than they are in Boise. Okay. There's a lot of inventory in Meridian compared to Boise.
Right.
As far as the kind of the short term outlook, obviously interest rates, capped yesterday at over 7%. For primaries, which has been a really big factor and is driven across the country. I think it's definitely changed the demand slightly and people's affordability.
Right.
And obviously,
I think the biggest thing is buying power is just evaporated with interest rates, and I think that's the way that I stick on what's happening in our market is just the buyer doesn't have as much leverage anymore. They can't go out and go buy a $700,000 house. They're kind of looking at $500,000 now, and the current house they live in is probably worth $600,000, so they'd have to downgrade. It doesn't quite make sense for people's situations.
It depends, and you're right, 100% depends on the situation. If you bought your house, I'm talking in the Boise market here because that's all I know. I can't really talk about, the Ada County market, Canyon County, I can't talk about other states or even northern Idaho. If you bought your home in the last 6 months to a year, there is a chance that you're going to be... your price, your value is lower than what you bought it for.
Probably.
So, generally speaking, unless you bought it for cash and you need to make a move somewhere else in the country or wherever, you might be better potentially sitting tight. If you bought your home more than a year ago, you're talking 2 years plus, there should be enough equity in there still to make a move should it be necessitated, like you need to do it. But yeah, right now people are kind of pumping the brakes a little bit, trying to figure out, okay, what makes sense and what doesn't. For buyers, at least, that is.
Right.
But there is a lot of opportunity right now too, and I don't think there's enough. People aren't talking about this enough. They're saying, the interest rates are higher, which is affecting people's buying power. 100%, that's true. But there are deals out there because sellers in certain situations, and I'm talking mainly off market too.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of desperation to an extent. They're kind of jumping the gun a little bit, thinking the world's falling apart. It's not. We're kind of back to normal, right?
Yeah.
Some people thinking the world is falling apart, so they're giving things away. I personally am still buying real estate. I've bought 5 properties in the last 3 months. I've bought 3 that were off market and were owner finance, which meant I brought the money, the down payment, and the owner actually financed the deal.
Yeah.
And they were very, very good deals. I'll be making good money off of those.
Are those 3, 5, 10-year holds? What's the plan?
So I got one of the notes will be due in 5 years. and the other 2 that I held are 10 and 12 year. So I'm not worried about what's going to happen in 10 or 12 years' time because most of my principal pay down on how cheap they are is going to be so low anyway and relatively protected.
Right.
So it's all about finding good deals. They're out there.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Should Riley buy a house right now?
Depends on what his situation is.
I mean, like that.
That's what we always do. Like with my guys at my brokerage, we'll always sit down and we go through a consultation with the buyer and figure out what are you trying to get achieved? What do you want to get achieved and what's your situation? We always say, unless you're an investor, a true investor, if you're buying a property or selling a property and it's your primary residence and it's something you're living in or something you need to move to, you shouldn't really look at the market as the primary reason to make a move. You got to look at your situation. Because if we try and time the market, we'll never make moves that actually help our situation. We're just doing
you
things.
Can't time the market.
No, you really can't time the market with that stuff. So we always say, okay, what do you need to get done? And we'll not turn away. We'll advise people, hey, your situation, it probably doesn't make sense because it's going to cost you too much. It might put you in a bad financial situation. But just because interest rates are high doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy a home. So, I mean, one, you'll look at what's your situation right now. Are you renting? Where's your rent at? What's your income? What kind of budget we're looking at? There's so many different factors.
Right.
Different factors that aren't just the market.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
That's been a popular topic with us.
Yep.
About like where my situation, and I feel comfortable renting and hanging tight. So it's like I would rather do that than be house broke.
Well, and it also gives you some flexibility too. I know when I bought my first house, what was it, 5-6 years ago now, my parents were like, no, don't buy a house. Like everything's super expensive and it's going to tie you down.
Little did they know.
Little did they know. Now it's just like, cha-ching. No. Yeah. But in reality, it's like, we don't know what the future holds, but you have to evaluate like where you're at. I know one thing that my parents were like, well, it takes away your flexibility. And that is true to a point. When you sign a lease on your apartment, you're 12 months, like it's pretty easy to commit to that. But when you buy a house and, let's say like you're saying, some people that bought 6-12 months ago might be a little upside down. When you start looking at equities, it's like, crap, I don't want to give up 40 grand plus commissions, to sell my house. It wouldn't make sense.
The only thing that I say to that, and I play devil's advocate just to give a good rounded conversation. But the one thing I do say to people when they're like, well, what if that? Again, if we go back to the whole conversation about the primary residence, you being upside down or having to worry about, if I'm going to sell it in a year's time, I'm kind of bound to it. Don't sell it. You need to live in it. So just write it out. Do you know what I mean? Like I
have some patience.
Yeah. Once you buy your property as your primary, or you're looking to buy it and you're thinking about, okay, what if I need to sell it, or I'm going to sell it in a year's time and I'm down 40K or whatever the scenario is. You shouldn't buy a primary residence, I don't think, with the idea of I need to sell it in the next year or two. I personally, if I'm buying a primary residence, I'm only buying that with the intent of living in it for
forever,
an extended period of time.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a quick flip, it's probably not the answer,
Yeah, that's also the thing. Bree and I are so young, so it's like, are we going to be living in Boise in the next 5 years? Are we going to be,
right?
We're still riding it out. She's going to be done with college in December, so then it's like, all right, now where does that put us? There's just lots of moving factors where it's like, it just doesn't feel like the right move to just like buy something to restrict us to that point. And not necessarily that it would restrict us, because there's ways that we could figure that out, but for now, it just feels okay.
Well, and that's too, like when I bought my first house, I knew it was an investment and I knew I'd only be in it less than 5 years. So like there was a different strategy to my perspective, because I could see, all right, like the mortgage is going to be $1,200. I could rent it for $1,700. Like there's a positive spread there when I bought the house. Right now, it's like if you go buy a $500,000 house in Meridian, it's like the rent's only $2,000 a month and your mortgage is $22,000. Like you're already like, things aren't adding up, even from like a buyer's perspective, if you're looking at it that way.
It's at the buy the deal is made. Generally speaking, most people say that it's at the buy the deal is made for the most part, because you need to look at it, analyze and I'm probably flipping switches here a little bit.
Yeah.
Looking more at the investment side, which I'm involved in too. I will never talking about looking at analyzing, okay, is my potential market rent going to cover my payment or whatever? Whenever I analyze my investment deals, I always look for at least 2 exit strategies. Are there two exit strategies that I can immediately implement to get out of the situation? 3 is ideal. If it's 3, it's almost a no-brainer. worst case scenario, you've got some capital tied up for a while. If there's 2 exit strategies, it's normally a good deal. If there's 1 exit strategy and it's like, this is the only thing I'm relying on one thing, especially something maybe out of my control to get out of this. Me personally, I'm pulling the plug. That's too high risk. I'll take a risk.
Nugget for the listeners.
Yeah, whenever you're looking
2
at
exit strategies.
always,
I like that.
Always have 2 exit strategies, and at least one of them needs to be in your control. I'm not a guru super investor. I'm not one of these massive podcast guys.
Will be someday.
Yeah, but that's what I'd say. Look
someday.
Look for 2 exit strategies.
That's why he's our first guest.
Oh, because they couldn't get anyone else on. That's why.
Oh, whoo! Shots fired this morning.
I'm talking crap. These guys are good.
I like it.
These guys are good.
So with real estate, what else we want to chat about today?
I want to ask you questions.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I want to know what the commercial outlet's looking like, because I'm residential. I spent all my life pretty much residential. I dabble and look at a few commercial things here and there.
So I think we're in a similar place. I've seen a lot of shifting. I know personally I haven't spent the last 3 months a ton of energy in the market transactionally. Been focusing on some internal operation stuff, so just getting my systems in place. And so I've seen kind of a slowdown when it comes to sellers aren't wanting to sell because they're like, what are they going to do with their money? I still think there's outside capital coming into our market for new development. A few big projects around town have got put on pause. I just think everyone's still really bullish on Boise long term, another 10, 15 years. I just think that, like you said earlier, you've got to find some off-market deals. So how do you do that? One, you go get your real estate license and you learn how to do it. I think there's so many people out there that are like, oh, I want to learn how to syndicate and do an owner finance deal. And it's like, you've got to learn how a transaction works before there's not many, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's not many highly successful investors out there that just did only real estate investing. They had to learn their way around a transaction, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because there's so many things you can learn through that give you leverage when you're going to do deals for yourself. Like you just said, you've bought in a lot of properties recently. It's because you have experience and knowledge, and it's not like you're just scamming out a seller for a good deal. You're meeting with them and you're discussing, okay, let's get a win-win. Like, let's make it work out for everybody. So long story short, in the commercial world, I think that it's just a changing market. There's new opportunities everywhere, more buyer power, but still there's so little inventory in Idaho. This is what I was going to ask you. How big of a deal do you think this Micron expansion is going to be for our market?
I think it's twofold. It definitely gives confidence in that a company like Micron would spend that much money as far as, their own assets, right? They're spending their money in their own assets in this market. That's great. The jobs that it creates, I think I read it was like 15,000 jobs nationally. I think people have been not looking at that part. They're like, 15,000 jobs. Well, it's actually more like 1,500 jobs, roughly. It's like 10 to 15% of the jobs locally, and the rest are in the rest of the country, which is great for the American economy. But I think people are overplaying a little bit the influx of people that will come from Micron. I think the biggest thing to look at is the confidence Micron have in the local economy to be able to invest that kind of money more than the individuals that are moving here. But don't get me wrong, 1,500 people, I mean, that's 1,500 families,
and
their families.
I don't even know if that factors in. I read something interesting yesterday that over the last year, like our Boise building department approved X amount of new building permits. When Micron starts their project, it's going to double that annually for 10 years. So you think of the staffing of like just even our city. So I don't know if in that number, if that's include like Micron saying, well, we're going to create this many jobs. Is that just Micron?
Is that the Boise
is it the big,
general?
Yeah, is it Boise in general? Or is it just the trickle effect of, oh my gosh, the city's going to need to staff up. Okay, our construction companies need to triple their staffing for the construction. Are they bringing out of state? It's just interesting, I
didn't even think about that, Blake, honestly. I mean, there's a knock-on effect because in order to house those people and to do the expansion, the physical expansion needs more workers. It's going to be interesting to know. I mean, time is obviously going to tell. It's happening over a long period of time. But I think the good news is that gives us sustained growth or
kind of like sustained growth.
There's going to be. We know that Micron are committed to doing this, therefore that's only going to help the economy.
Right.
It's really interesting to see. I mean, I wish it sounds silly. Everyone always wishes they have a crystal ball, but right now in this moment, I really wish I had a crystal ball because we're in a state of like kind of flux. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on.
Are we going down or are we going to go up?
Yeah, it's weird.
Riley, final words.
I mean, I'm at the age where I'm just like,
what the hell are you guys talking about?
No, like I'm just gonna sit tight and watch. You know, like I don't need to make a decision now. I like that. And that applies to the housing market. That applies to my investing, the stock market. That applies to everything.
DCA all day.
My career, yeah, everything. So
one of the biggest things I learned, or that helped me when I was younger and even today, is learning from other people's mistakes. So sometimes, especially when you're young, it's good to sit back and watch other people sometimes make moves early on so you can figure out what is and isn't a good idea. So to an extent, I'd agree with you, man. I mean, I learned a lot of things on what not to do by people older than me that already walked the path that made mistakes. So be a sponge, and sometimes it doesn't hurt to observe, I think, sometimes.
I love it. Thanks for being on the show, Elliot.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
That was fun.
Quick bites.